Steven Spielberg, Jaws, Godfather. The industry took a chance on a lot of young directors, and we're not seeing that happening today because it's just too much of a chance. Because do you hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a speculative business. Making entertainment is speculation, and when you speculate, the last thing you want is a factor in whether or not your venture will be successful, and that factor is whether most of the profit that you might get from that venture will be siphoned away by illegal downloads. And what that does is stop independent production. It stops money people, banks that supply money to these producers. They have to start asking, do we want to do this? Are we going to get any return on our investment, or are we going to get a greatly reduced return because the profit is all drained away by illegal downloads? And that is a serious problem in Hollywood because motion pictures have increasingly become more expensive to produce. Many of them are over $250 million to shoot now. And where do you get that kind of money? That's very serious money. So that's something that, we don't want to see. We want to see movies continue. My personal view is I think movies, they've built them up to such incredible, expensive films, and I think we need some less expensive and more substantive films. But then again, I'm not in that business. I don't know what's going to make the maximum profit for these investors, and they have to make money. It's not a charity, it is a business, So I do think that the cost of going to a theater is driving a lot of people away, and it is, because I used to love to go. There was nothing better than going to the theater to watch a movie because you're with people, and it's just so much fun. And I hate the idea that that's starting to die because it's so expensive. Nobody wants to pay it,
And it used to be an event. You would get dressed up to go out to movies, and
absolutely,
especially those historic movie theaters that are becoming fewer and fewer. They
were wonderful. That was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. But our caller here is of a younger generation. He's up and coming. He does coding, and he's in between jobs. The industry is a lot different, I think, today. Like for programmers or coders, or I don't know all the words for it. But I'm looking at this that's coming, and I wonder about our caller here. How is he supposed to get a job when the internet is not existent here? What happens to all those programmers and coders? A caller, do you have any idea what might happen?
I don't. It's just a unknown factor right now. That's what I see it as. It's definitely an unknown factor, and it's a scary factor. Knowing if the industry is going to change, if I finish school and if I'm able to get a job in that industry or not. Because I might have to go back and change my whole career to something else. It's just
alarming.
Everything's a risk. Right. Everything's a risk, especially in the economic state we're in right now.
I wonder how they can make something creative out of this. There's always a silver lining. What industry is going to pop up that's going to be hot and upcoming, where someone like our caller can make bank on that. Being on the cutting edge of it, the beginning of it. Can you guys think of anything that would be good about this?
I could see a huge business in alternative ISPs, internet service providers, that could, through the use of VPNs and through the use of common carriers, buy bandwidth from these other companies under their own contract rules and bypass this non-net neutrality lockdown network. I know Verizon, for instance, resells bandwidth to a dozen small cellular companies. Like, for instance, Virgin Atlantic does not own any cell towers. They resell cell capacity that is built by AT&T and Verizon. So I can see in the same thing of alternate ISPs arising that will say, listen, we respect your rights as Americans, and we will not throttle your traffic. And that could be a wonderful opportunity to steal market share away from the big companies like Verizon and Time Warner and Comcast. Whether or not the environment is 100% available to make that happen, I don't know. But I know that Verizon spends a lot of money keeping, and so does Time Warner and AT&T, spend a lot of money keeping their network up and running. It's very expensive. And they cannot afford to have people disconnect or in any way not supply them with the revenue they need to keep their networks running. I mean, to them, the bottom line is dollars. And if they start losing money, that is a major problem because they cannot survive without a flow of cash to keep those networks running. That was the problem with Sprint. They lost so many subscribers that they've become a takeover target because they, for years they had really terrible service. I hear it's better, but without a constant flow of cash coming in, these networks don't survive. They will collapse. They get bought out and get sold off and torn up into pieces and God knows what.
So maybe the .coms of the 90s might come back. When they had these upstarts.
Yeah.
The alternate underground .com.
Well, I mean, the only thing I could see is if somehow a law is passed that, Congress is pretty. I think they're not the best Congress we've ever had. I'm trying to be diplomatic. In fact, they're the worst Congress we've ever had. They're terrible. I mean, they're like, they're almost like we don't even get rid of all of them and get a whole new batch. But the fact is, there's a possibility. I mean, some of the things they do just remind me of just being complete dictators. And I'm thinking, what if they tried to restrain any kind of alternative network service provider, and it's possible they could pass laws like that. I don't know. They keep talking about defunding agencies, our Republican friends, about defunding this and defunding. So they don't agree with some statutory oversight, and they say, well, we're going to just take your money away and fire you. That scares me. That to me doesn't sound like democracy. That sounds like they are mad and they're going to shake their little fists and they're going to say, all right, we'll just take the money away and we'll put you out of business. Is that really what we should be doing as a country? I don't think so. I think most people would disagree with that. So I'm hoping that cooler heads prevail. We do have an election coming up, and I think it would make a lot of sense to call for all our listeners to call or write their congressperson and say, what's your view on net neutrality? Because they're going to have a view, yes or no, even though they may not be on the telecommunications panel, but they're all vote. They all have to vote. And I'd like to know.
And things are changing.
And things are changing. I'm going to call my representative on Monday and call him the local office in Orange County, California. I'm going to say, hey, what's your view? And if he says, I hate net neutrality, I will know how I will vote, won't I?
Will you call your senator or your representative?
Absolutely.
If it's taken by a secretary or assistant, they do log the call. They log the call. It's very important that people hear this, or your emails. So. But I think a phone call for personal, because it shows you took it at the next level. You picked up a phone.
Absolutely.
And you called in.
And there's other websites that are keeping track of how people vote on these things, and you can look up a person's record on this, and it's not secret. Their vote is public, and they or actually one of their aides will certainly say, hi, I'm Tom Smith. I work for Representative blah blah, and the representative feels very strongly in support of or against, and you'll get it. You'll get a comment, and that's as good as gold. And take that to the voting booth with you. And if you agree with them, vote for them. If you don't, you should consider the alternatives.
Right.
I just looked this up real quick. If you go to businessrecord.com, I believe it's /net neutrality. It gives a little insight on that with your senators. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You need to definitely stay in contact with your representatives and your local officials. Unfortunately, there's some of them we have here where I live. They're really not too responsive, so you actually have to go in and talk to them in person, to try to keep them accountable. So, but if you have to do that, go into your local office, find where they work, and do it. And record your conversation with them, unless you're involved.
Oh, that's a good idea. I never even thought about that one. What about Hulu? It used to be completely free. It's not free anymore. I don't know if anybody's noticed. I wonder if they were anticipating and just trying out a model that, hey, let's try charging for this.
Hulu, it's interesting because I don't personally use Hulu, but my sister-in-law loves Hulu, and she goes, it's only 3 commercials. They pay. The free one's a lot more than 3. It seems like a commercial every 2 seconds, But the one they pay, there's 3 commercials. The commercials you can vote on them, and it will tune the commercials to ones that you won't find as boring, which is kind of an interesting idea. And I've been over at her house when we watch shows on Hulu, and it's not that bad. I know some people hate the idea, but I don't think I'd have a problem watching Hulu. I don't think it's very expensive. But
no, it's
I think that. And and Hulu's got a lot of subscribers. People are willing to pay it if it generates that extra revenue to keep these shows being produced and really creative programming. I say let it run. It's not free to make motion pictures or television shows. They're expensive. And so you have to monetize them somehow,
My point was that Hulu used to be completely free. You could watch sitcoms, the past sitcoms, things like that.
It was great.
And then it was a few months ago they started charging. I wondered if they were anticipating, just trying out, the tariff charge, so to speak.
They could have. I think that for Hulu, because Hulu is sort of interdisciplinary, it carries materials from several different production companies and networks. I think Hulu is trying to find a revenue model that will return enough revenue to the content producers that they will continue to generate content and offer it there. I mean, the ad revenue from broadcast television keeps going down. They need to fill in the blanks, or we're going to end up with a lot simpler programming. If you watch television today, a lot of television programming is shot with the quality of a motion picture. They really look good. It's not just a
like CSI and
CSI is millions of dollars. That's several $million a show, and that's when you walk on that set. There are 100 people there. That is a major production, and I mean it is just like being on a movie set. And they use the same equipment, and the results are beautiful. It looks like a movie. So it's not like the old days, which I happen to have loved. But doing a show like All in the Family, well, that was 2 sets. And a studio audience, and it didn't cost that much money to shoot that. And yet it was a wonderful show. The Big Bang Theory, that's just a couple of sets.
Oh, I love that show.
And a wonderfully funny people, and it's great because the cost per production per show is under $100,000. It's very reasonable as far as compared to other shows, but we live in a world of high definition now, and the sets look beautiful. They go on location just like on movies. I frankly love the big, fancy motion picture style productions. Look great. They cost a lot of money to produce, many, many, many millions of dollars. So I hope that quality stays up there, and they continue to raise the money. I know the BBC has been hit with the same creeping cost to produce an episode, but the BBC is monetizing their programming through BBC America. They make a lot of money off that channel.
Oh, Doctor Who.
Oh, God. I mean, it's a
Since
wonderful...
I was a child, I have been a fan.
Oh, same
I remember
here.
Watching. Yeah.
John Pertwee.
It's amazing.
Tom
I remember
Baker.
the guy with the dark hair. I think his name was Tom.
Tom Baker.
And
John
he was one of my favorites.
Now, all that money...